Thank you everyone for joining us for your first time, or if you've come to a couple of these of ours, our interview and expert series. So thank you everyone for registering. Really cool to see how many people are interested to join on this. We're very thankful today to have Ben, OT systems engineer at Sunwater, who's one of our fantastic clients and doing some terrific work in the drone sector for his industry. So for those who haven't joined us before, these are short series of webinars. We work a lot with drone operators and drone teams for some large and small organizations. And by far the number one question we get every single week, or even, most days, is people want to understand what others are doing in the industry. We share our insights and what we think and our recommendations, but I think nothing beats actually listening to others who are in similar positions to ourselves and sharing how their journey's been, lessons learned along the way, and what they have in store for the future. So for this week, it's been a long time coming. We're super keen to dive into Sunwater and all the fantastic work that Ben and the team are doing. So this one is, we're going to focus a little bit around their journey as they enter into the ReOC side of operations. So and they're going from XCAT to ReOC, as well as doing a bunch of different new and fantastic applications with their drones. So without further ado, we'll jump into it, and I'll flick over and introducing Ben. So welcome, Ben. Thank you so much for taking the time, mate. I'm really keen to pick your brain today. So maybe to kick things off, maybe tell a little bit about yourself for everyone who's joined in today.
Yeah, thanks so much for having us, Alex. It's a really good opportunity just to kind of share what we're doing in the drone space, where we've come from, and where we're heading. So really keen to just, I guess, tell a bit of a story, and I hope it's of use to everyone else out there. It's always nice if you can kind of share pain points, I guess, and learn from other people's journeys. So kind of dive into that one now. Ben Harrison, for those that don't know me, I'm a senior systems engineer in the Sunwater operational technology group at Sunwater, and I manage the Sunwater drone program. I've been at the company now for about 17 years. I don't know how that happened. It just seems to creep up on you, but here we are. I started off here just as a cadet draftsman in the electrical engineering department, just basically coming out as a school leaver, and just kind of got thrown into the deep end there, just developing my skill set in the engineering space, working on asset development and pipeline construction, that type of thing. But after a while, moved across into what's called the hydrographic group, which is an area that was really focused on, I guess, the level monitoring systems across the state, working on like instrumentation and telemetry of those systems. Been in that space for quite a while, and I guess I've really seen like the evolution of technical capability in that space, and the transition of the focus from pure data capture to, I guess, data sharing, and everything that's kind of come out over the last few years in the web API space as well, and about interconnected systems. And I guess the focus on that area, specifically about data sharing, Sunwater saw that as an evolving space, and that's what really led to the creation of the operational technology group specifically. So I moved across, and that's where I find myself today.
Fantastic. I think everyone gets seduced by the technology sector once or twice. So I was originally
Yes,
civil
absolutely.
engineering, and I've come across, so definitely feel your pain there.
Mm.
Fantastic. Great, mate. So that was a little bit about the background for yourself. Curious to see, could you walk us through Sunwater's drone journey so far? So I guess, where it started, what the first use cases were, and how it sort of evolved over the years.
Yeah, so I think we started off about 4 or 5 years ago now. I can't claim to be there at the very outset. All credit goes to my previous manager, Catherine Chilvers, was really, I guess, the pioneer in that space and bringing like our XCAT program into being. But for us, Sunwater as an organization has like a really large amount of staff like spread across the entirety of Queensland. For those that aren't directly familiar with Sunwater, I guess we're a bulk water utility that operates across the breadth of regional Queensland. So from just outside of Brisbane, when you get into Maryborough and the border rivers, all the way up to Mount Isa and Cairns and up in those areas as well. So it's just a huge area that we're working across. And naturally, I guess, a byproduct of having like so many dispersed staff, like we have a really big focus on safety for all our personnel, as as every organization does these days, I suppose. But a part of like our risk management strategy is really about identifying the critical risks that our staff are exposed to. And I guess a couple that really stood out to us that we're exposed to daily in the water operations space, working at heights and working around water. And anything we can do to reduce our direct exposure of our staff to those critical risks. Sunwater is very kind of keen to promote the use of technology or innovation in that space. And that's where, like, I guess the outset of our drone program really came about. A couple of our forward-looking operators, as is the case, there's always someone that's got a drone floating around at home, and they've kind of used it in their own farm or just around the place before they kind of bring it into the workplace. So it was really just like that cry actually from our operations teams that really led to us wanting to onboard that capability and bring that into the organizational space.
Fantastic, mate. That's great. And your, I guess the use case, you mentioned sort of safety there. Is that like a sort of recommended? I think you said you guys have close to 50 pilots now across the state. Is it sort of mainly day-to-day inspection checks that you guys do, or what's the sort of use cases that you employ the drones in?
Yeah. Primarily, definitely, like, we're almost entirely still in the XCAT space. We're just starting to move into that ReOC space now. But I think the thing for us is drones and drone capability is really like an evolution of capability. It's not, I guess, a direct upgrade in one traditional engineering space. Drones are used really broadly across all types of areas. And because of that, I guess drone use isn't any one person's job. We don't actually have like dedicated drone pilots. We don't hire anyone. That's not their job. It's a skill set that our operations and engineering teams have, like, in addition to their other roles. So what we're seeing is in the XCAT space, just that slow, I guess, kind of building of capability, and that transition from, like I say, like working at heights, will remove like that whole process of having fall arrest systems. We'll be using drones where we can like much more easy, simply access that information. We can capture that far more routinely. It's quicker, and there's just no risk when it comes to actually exposing our operations teams to those types of things. And similarly, working around water, we've got a number of intake towers and other assets that are like wholly surrounded by water that require boat operations to undertake and get out there and get eyes on. And whilst we're not at the space yet where we can, use drones to say turn a valve or anything like that, technical, we certainly can use it for like that low level inspection, and that's still going to reduce like our requirement to access some of those sites by up to 90%. So it really is just about kind of getting in that low level requirement, but we're getting a lot of benefit because we're just reducing that risk load on our teams.
Awesome, mate. I'll jump across to this next one. Awesome. Yeah, so you mentioned a bit about the safety there, being sort of the main application. Obviously, working around water, I would imagine, is a heap of risks there. So having drones to sort of be implemented and transition across. I guess could you maybe dive in a bit deeper about, or a little bit more detail around what Sunwater's gained on the process? So I imagine reducing safety risk sounds key, but are there any sort of other efficiencies or things that you guys have picked up or now been able to do by sort of incorporating drones?
Yeah, so I guess touching on your third question there, the unexpected benefits. It's when you start kind of embedding that capability and I guess normalizing it and increasing the knowledge of these operations that are ongoing, you actually kind of find use cases that you just really hadn't conceived of. So again, we're focused in the health and safety space. That's our primary driver for getting drone operations and reducing our risk. But getting out there and normalizing drone operations across the state, we've started to see that additional workload come in that just had never been considered. So our engineering, our water resources teams are looking at, oh, can you also capture some photogrammetry to inform our flood modeling? Our media teams are just like, oh, you're on site. Can you get some, promo shots for something we're doing for like a social media or, some media campaign, something like that. But I guess the biggest thing is just we're increasing our visibility of our assets. So we work, regionally. Some sites will be like, singularly manned. And I guess with our head office being in Brisbane, like, the ability for us to get more information and more visibility of what's going on at our regional sites is just hugely beneficial. And like you realize those efficiencies in a number of ways. It's not just, oh, now I've got that, survey. I don't need to, get out there. I've got an operator to do that for me. It's a case of we had some huge construction job, but with this extra information, like, we had a scoping kind of survey that our operator could just do for us. We're getting that information much earlier, and it's kind of informing that decision-making process much earlier on in our, in our program of works as well. So having that information and the extra detail that comes with that available earlier on in our project space is just making sure that we're better informed and making better decisions, so we're not going down the wrong path, I guess, or finding other opportunities and better ways to operate in that project space. So that's certainly been something that, like, I guess we weren't going out to solve that problem, but it's just been a natural byproduct of evolving drone operations.
For sure. I was going to say, it sounds like, yeah, definitely with how dispersed your assets are and how big they are, having the we call part-time pilots, but sort of equipping those engineers or surveyors and environmental agents to be able to quickly get the drones out there, get the visual, inspect it, and especially for the head office in Brisbane, not having to do 1,000 field trips to try and get that information. So yeah, I think equipping that team sounds like it's been super helpful.
Yeah, and like I think there's some points further on that we were talking about as well about the future capabilities and things like that. But I think for us as a government like utility, we have a huge focus on like resilience and capability, and security obviously is a growing concern for everyone. And drones is just really like another tool in the shed for like how we combat that and our capabilities in that space. So as you say, like the regional, like I guess, and the time it takes to get out to some of these sites. Also, like obviously in the water industry and dam operations, we're also exposed to a number of risks such as flooding. That's a natural byproduct of operating a dam, and there'll often be like access restrictions and things that come with like these cyclonic events. Like you've got airports inundated, you physically can't send people to site. So having a drone capability to either do survey works or just even that low level inspection video, just get that on site visibility of what our assets are doing, where we're at and what's happening. We can feed that information back to those that need it. So it really is just bolstering our resilience in that space.
Fantastic. That probably fits pretty well into the next question. So I guess big core of this session today was to dive in your journey now into the ReOC space. There's some people out there who are sort of experts in here and very clear. There's others who are just hearing what a ReOC is for the first time. So it's always good to maybe just unpack, I guess, what that process has been look like for you so far. Now, I guess you said sort of doing XCAT for a while, those inspections. Media, sort of sub 2 kilo category sort of flights, now transitioning those 50 sort of pilots across to sort of a ReOC based operations. I guess probably starting that, what sort of, if you don't mind me asking, what sort of triggered that that change for Sunwater? Was there anything that you sort of were hoping to build out more capabilities around?
If anything, it's not really a change. It's more of a natural evolution. I think once we've got to the point where we've normalized XCAT operations, like there's that expectation that we have this capability, we can do photogrammetry surveys. It's a natural byproduct of having that capability is, someone's always going to want bigger and better, surveys or more capability. So it's really, for us, it's very much a natural evolution and what we need to do to kind of enable that. So I guess like there's a number of different areas of the business that are calling out for this type of capability. And again, like the original kickoff for our XCAT program was about reducing risk. That doesn't go away when it's like the included category in ReOC operations as well. So we've had a number of operators that have been scoping out use cases such as weed spraying, water sampling, and these are all current capabilities that we have, obviously not with the drone, but these are activities that have to be performed. And now that we have that XCAT capability and we've normalized drones, people are kind of taking that and running with it and going, okay, how can we use drones to address this concern? And yeah, for us, that's really about, having that communication, making sure that we're educating like the areas of the business about the capabilities and our limitations. So certainly, you see weed spraying and this type of stuff is done all the time. But we need to educate the business on, okay, no, there is like a whole foundational layer that needs to be undertaken, and then about working towards attaining our ReOC before we can move into that space. So there's a lot of work that goes on that front as well about like educating staff internally in the drone space, because as I say, like we don't really have anyone that's outside of Nick Baranoff, who's just joined us as our chief remote pilot as part of that process in attaining a ReOC. No one's actually employed as a drone pilot. So we do have to do a lot of that educating across the business as well.
For sure. I was going to say that's definitely we sort of see those 5 stages of drone maturity sort of programmed, and yeah, but I think those first couple is definitely that internal education, and I think that can sometimes be not a blocker, but more of, I guess, an enabler to, once everyone gets it and sees like, we move to a ReOC, we can have more capability, and as you said, it's similar things are already being done, but it's sort of evolving that to faster, more safer, more efficient ways of weed spraying and those sort of inspections. So
yeah, absolutely. And I think the thing that's important is, you can't put the cart before the horse and just like, okay, like list every requirement under the sun that you're going to start moving towards. But you do need to have something to drive that requirement. Like you can't just go, okay, yeah, now we're going to get our ReOC. I really wouldn't recommend just moving into the ReOC sake for the sake of it. You really want to have like a really good use case and driver to kind of move into that space, because you do need, like, there is a lot of legwork and a lot of strategy that needs to be put behind how you're going to attain that, how you're going to move there, and have like that level of governance that sits behind that to make.
For sure. Fantastic. Awesome. I'll keep moving on. We'll get the next one. So, similar to other, you sort of touched on a few points there of, starting first, educating the internal system, internal organization, and then, not rushing to a ReOC, get those use cases, which seem to birth new use cases and new ideas. For people out there, I guess, who are either starting their drone program or looking to scale, or maybe sort of following the footsteps that you guys are doing, what's your advice to them? I guess how do you recommend, or what are some lessons learned been that'd say make sure we do these 3 things if you follow in sort of in our footsteps? Oh, I think sorry, mate, I think you might be muted. Let me just.
Can you hear me again?
Perfect, gotcha.
All good. I don't know how I managed that. So I think the key thing for us is we didn't have any webinars to help us out on that front earlier on. So we didn't really have anyone else's mistakes to learn from, or rather their journey, I'd hope, rather than mistakes. But certainly, I think all I can say is, like, I guess the way that we've approached it. So it was really about starting small. As I said, like, this was driven by like some proactive operators that thought, like, okay, these are our specific use cases. This is what we want to achieve. All of which could be, done just with that sub 2 kilo category. It really is just about, using drones at, I guess, their base level of just taking a photo or taking some video. But it's how you do that, what risks are reducing from that. But for us, I think the key thing was we don't need to reinvent the wheel. Like, this is a standard capability that like tons of businesses, are utilizing now. And for us, I won't start name dropping organizations, but we partnered with a training partner. So one of the many registered training organizations that provides training in the drone space, XCAT and REPL. They also will have packages to assist you with kind of building up your standard like drone operations procedure and everything that comes with that. So for us, it was about making sure that the way we embed drones it's just another body of work. Our risk management strategies are still going to apply, and it's really just about marrying like our existing process with like the additional kind of rules and regulations that come with like the CASA kind of side of things that are specific to that drone area, I guess. So for us, that was about making sure that we had logbooks in place, that we had like our risk management strategies and like actual risk assessment templates that were specific to drone operations, all of which was like content that you can pull from CASA, or you can get from registered training providers that are able to provide that type of content. But it was making sure that we just had all those checks and balances in place, that we could be assured that operators are operating safely, and we're not kind of taking some great leap forward and just letting operators have at it and they'll figure it out. We want to make sure that we've got that level of governance in place, but it really is just about step by step making sure that you've got the policy in place and that you've got enough of the procedure that kind of marries up with the required risk assessments. And for us, being in the XCAT space, like we've got a whole number of categories in the risk space, risk assessment space. XCAT operations is really just like a level 1. So for us, that's what we call our SLAM procedure. I assume that's similar across many organizations, but stop, look, assess, and manage the risk. So that was really all that we kind of needed to facilitate operations to move into the drone space there.
Fantastic. Great, mate. This is really good.
Awesome. Actually, I just thought one other thing of that. I just realized there's also, I guess, like the registration and licensing aspect that comes with that. So operational technology, I guess, took the lead in facilitating that for our teams, because we can't, it might be the case like you've got one operator in one region, we can't set up a training course for that one person in particular. So to I guess initiate that process, we had like aggregated training. So we'll bring our regional operators into one space and kind of train them up and just, I guess, get the ball rolling in that space. And we took the charge of purchasing the drones, getting them registered with CASA, making sure that our operators had the drone operator accreditation with CASA, and we set a minimum standard. So technically for XCAT operations, outside of an organizational structure, you really just need to go online, watch a 5-minute video with CASA, and you're good to go. But for us to have that assurity that our operators were going to be operating safely, we set our minimum standard as, yes, you have to go through that process. Yes, you have to attain your ARN and your operator's accreditation, but we're going to set a minimum standard of you have to have done at least like a 1 or 2 day training course in that XCAT space. And like we embed that with our learning, our enterprise systems, learning portals, that sort of thing, and kind of surface that to our operations teams. So it's about us defining, I guess, where our minimum standard is for drone operations within Sunwater.
Absolutely. I was going to say that's a good point. Even, XCAT's obviously got less requirements than a sort of ReOC, but having that baseline of, I totally agree. Having those 2 days of training and having some form of base level understanding to de-risk that and make sure people aren't just diving in head first. I think that's really important.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Awesome. Keen to go through to some Q&A in a sec. Got a couple more slides. There was one, selfishly, I'd love to do even like a bit of a short case study, I guess, how you've used Fly Freely. I'd love to understand your, I guess, what sort of triggered the company to adopt Fly Freely, and how is it sort of used today, or what's sort of the outcomes of using it on site?
Yeah, so certainly for us moving into the ReOC space, we had a huge body of work about like assessing drone strategy for Sunwater, and what we were going to do to, I guess, maintain the progression that we wanted in that drone space, but also make sure that we continue to operate safely. And I think even if we hadn't or made the call that we weren't going to move into the ReOC space, we still would have gone down the pathway of putting in like a management platform such as Fly Freely, just because I think one thing that was kind of evident when we have grown as large as we have, like as you say, like we've got about over 50 operators now that are operating in the drone space. Sorry, I've just got my headphones giving me noises in the background here. Yeah, so it became evident that for us to provide that level of governance and visibility and ensure that we maintain a level of safety, where we're going to need that organizational management platform, regardless of whether we moved into the ReOC space or not. So that was a key driver for us, I guess, to move towards this area. Just as you say, like, we don't have dedicated drone pilots and we're very regionally dispersed. So for us now, as growing as far as we have, we need that level of visibility of our daily operations, and Fly Freely kind of provided that. So yeah, it's been really great in, I guess, the process of kind of embedding that across Sunwater. We're still in the early stages. We haven't rolled that across like our full operations teams, but we've gone through some like really successful early programs. I hate to use the word pilot program in the drone space. It doesn't work too well there. Our proof of concept, I guess. But yeah, everyone's been really engaged and really happy with that as well. And I think so at Sunwater we have a policy about don't just add another app, to the suite of apps, because for the last couple of years, every person in the sun has just had another app that they've had to use on their day-to-day jobs. But when it comes to drone operations, the operations teams have been really happy with, I guess, using the Fly Freely app, because it's actually reducing their workload and the number of areas that they need to work across. As we talked to earlier, you've got like, all the record keeping, the logbooks, the risk assessments, all of that now has kind of been reduced into like a single source of truth, which is the Fly Freely app for us. So if anything, it's actually condensing, I guess, the workload into one spot. So we're making our operators' lives easier rather than harder when it comes to adding another app that they have to use.
Awesome, mate. No, that's a great feedback. Thanks for that. Awesome. So we've got just cautious of time. I want to get some feel free, everyone on the call, if you want to start asking questions, and we'll jump that in just a second. But I guess moving forward, the next sort of 12 months, and I know that's always I used to say this question every what's happening next 3 years, but that's too far ahead.
Absolutely. It's changing too quickly to really think that far ahead. Yeah.
100%, particularly in this space too. But curious, I guess, where appropriate to share, obviously, what you guys are focusing on for both the drones and then I guess like the data capability from that. A few things you mentioned a little bit earlier, but yeah, what's the sort of focus in the next 12 months, core couple of pieces?
Yeah, so obviously, like continuing BAU in the XCAT space, like that's not going to go away for like the bulk of our use cases, which is still going to continue to be inspections. So for us, the focus on that one is rolling out Fly Freely across all of our operations teams and making sure that that's now like a fully embedded process, and that all drone ops are going to be using that platform. So that's a key concern for us. But as I touched on earlier, I think a key focus for Sunwater is like our resilience in emerging threat space as well, whether that's operations or security. And as you've got on the screen conveniently, obviously you've got those type of additional capabilities in the BVLOS space, or the BV EVLOS, that just allows us to kind of have that additional kind of capability that we don't currently have. And that's a key focus for us, providing that responsivity to changing events. For instance, like, so we've got a site out at Mount Isa, and whilst we have operators on site, if like those sites can get cut off when we have flood events, and like us to have that ability to respond with a BVLOS or a drone in a box type scenario is like a really great tool for us to have. But similarly, as I was talking earlier as well about like the natural evolution of capability, now that we've embedded drone operations across and continuing that level of communication, we now have operators like reaching out going, oh, can we look at doing, channel inspections, pipeline inspections with drones? And that's really only going to be possible if we can move into that beyond visual line of sight space. Like, we've got thousands of kilometers of pipeline. So that's where we're going to be focusing our gaze, I guess, over the next year ahead, and just understanding, I guess, the impact of drones in that space. The only other area I can think of there is also like in the weed management, so looking at water sampling, but also looking at like the multispectral drones for looking at invasive species of weeds as well. So those are just a couple of areas that we'll be looking into, but certainly very much in the R&D space, as opposed to like rolling out that as a full capability this time.
Fantastic. No, thanks so much, mate. Super interesting. I think the BVLOS stuff. So there's always new stuff emerging. We always hear with CASA and sort of horse for the cart. There's new legislation being built, but there's also new capabilities, and they sort of rely on each other. So yeah, I'm really keen to see what happens there. Feels like between that sort of power distribution and maybe oil and gas, sort of similarities, those linear assets, and having that same capability in the drone space. Hopefully, 2024 is the year they make some leaps and bounds with that area as well.
Yeah,
Um,
absolutely. We're certainly hoping so. Yeah.
yeah, fantastic. Awesome. Conscious of time. Let's just maybe if anyone's got any questions, if you want to send some through there. Maybe we got maybe 15 minutes there of Ben's time. Don't want to take up any more, but yeah, anything we've discussed today or any questions you have for Ben, feel free to send them through. Um, awesome, mate. I might even while people are answering, I might even just ask some questions too. I guess your end only answer if appropriate, but we spoke offline a little while ago about the idea of digital twins. I'm a bit of a nerd in that space, but I guess using drones, is that sort of part of the drone strategy as well, sort of capturing that survey data, all those photogrammetry points? Is that in sort of overlapping there as well with your drone strategy?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. It's a big focus for us, not specifically in the drone space, but I guess just organization wide about how we're capturing data, but also like surfacing it and making it available. At the moment, so we have like an Azure space. Like one thing we haven't touched on, I guess, is like the growing like data growth, just like the actual system requirements to store like the imagery. So we've got like an Azure space, I guess, that's purely dedicated to that growth of our imagery that we're capturing with drones. But certainly we're looking to move, I guess, and leverage like our GIS capabilities in displaying that data, but also providing it in a way that it's cataloged and it's actually discoverable. We have had issues in the past where we've had a project kick off and the first thing was like, oh, let's go engage a drone operator and get a survey done, and like not knowing that a survey had been conducted like a week prior. And so for us, that's a core tenet of like our data management strategies of making sure that we're not just capturing these assets, we're also providing that level of visibility to the business via our core systems, and making sure that all of that information is actually discoverable, and it's not just stored on someone's desktop and save for a rainy day, that type of thing.
100%. Yeah, capturing is half the story, and then making it accessible and usable is the other. So yeah, that's awesome. We had a question here from Jamie. Just sent through. They've asked, "Are you looking at expanding your drone operations into ecology and fauna in the future?"
Ecology and fauna. Absolutely. Yeah, I guess the key thing with that is the operational technology environment. I can really only talk to, I guess, facilitating the use of drones and like working with those teams directly on building out that capability. So our environmental teams are really taking like charge, obviously, in that area. Certainly, we have, I guess, flora and fauna like monitoring programs. At the moment, we're focused primarily in the invasive weeds more so than pests. But certainly that's an area to move into. I know we're looking at it in the like camera and surveillance space. We haven't really looked at it with the drones as yet. We do have like a Mavic 3, like a thermal drone that we've been looking at kind of trialing the capabilities with that. But that's been focused primarily on like asset management. So looking at just leak detections in pipes and like the impact, I guess, on our earth embankment dams, that sort of thing. Haven't yet moved into that pest management space, but certainly like we've been already talking with universities, I guess, on the AI applications of identifying weeds and acting on that as well.
Awesome, mate. Great. We've got another one here from Hamad. So we've got, were there any notable accidents that happened during your drone operations, and what were your learnings from them?
Yeah, I think I don't know whether we've been lucky or what a good incident rate is with drones. To date, we've been operating for a number of years now, and I've got a fleet of currently, I think, 35 drones. We've only had two issues, I believe. One with a power line that came out of nowhere, and one, the natural byproduct for us is like we're always working over water. So we had one battery failure, and the drone ended up going into the drink there. But for us, neither of those were, I guess, like key failures of, policy and procedure. I think the one, like, there's nothing you can really do about a battery failure that, I guess we were operating under the CASA, guidelines. So there's no one working within that area. So no one was directly put at risk. But certainly for the power line space, that certainly highlighted for us, I guess, how we're doing that initial site assessment and risk assessment, and really thinking about, yes, I'm flying to inspect this asset, but you really need to think of it as not just that, like the directive of the task, but like the actual mission itself and everything that can impact on that. So in that instance, I guess it was a case of just not being fully familiar with site. I believe that was, an engineer attending site rather than one of the local site operators. So there's certainly that level of site familiarity when it comes to doing those types of operations. So that was certainly a learning for us about, engaging with local operators if going out to these regional sites, and making that we do like a proper site assessment before conducting any type of drone ops.
Fantastic. No, that's great, mate. And we got one more here. So from Jamie. So where do you see the key opportunities in the org regarding machine learning, DL, and AI? What existing infrastructure is in place and program Sunwater uses currently?
Yeah, so I mean, that's a growing concern for every organization, right? The application of analytics. For us, I guess, again, I kind of just come back with that caveat of like, I'm just really about getting the drone missions, I guess, covered off, and providing that foundational element. And what you do with the data is really up to, I guess, those subject matter experts. So we do try and operate with that in mind. So, the geology team are using drones for their own purposes, and we try not to kind of tell people how to use, or rather what to use them for, but just how to use them. But we do have a dedicated team in our IT department that's actually specifically targeted at analytics and big data applications. So we've been working with them on really about feeding in like image data sets that they can do processing on. Still very much in the R&D space at this time. But for us, we've been looking, I guess, at using imagery to detect algal growth rates, that type of thing, as well as, so again, that coming back to that thermal drone, doing like routine survey and understanding, I guess, the conditions of our bank's stability, and I guess really understanding about how our assets are changing over time, and looking at using like image engines, I guess, to kind of detect changes that aren't, I guess, directly visible to the naked eye, or that's something that's not going to pop out to our routine visual inspection.
Yep. No, that makes total sense. Fantastic, mate. I think that's with a couple minutes to spare, I think that looks like all the main questions. So yeah, we might put a stop there. So thank you so much, mate. I know you're very busy and there's a lot going on. So really appreciate the time and energy to share with us today. And hopefully everyone who joined in got a lot out of it. And I believe we've got we linked Ben's LinkedIn there. So if you got any screaming questions or want to offer him some great things, feel free to contact him there. But if anyone has any questions from this or any thoughts or feedback, please feel free to reach out. But no, thanks again, mate. I really appreciate your time, and thanks for sharing it with us.
No, thanks for the opportunity, mate. It's been great. And like I said, I think a big thing for us is just, we're all here to kind of learn and grow in this space. So, any opportunity that we can do to kind of give back and hopefully save, some others in like their growing pains and kind of guiding through that, I'm more than happy to help out. Equally, always keen to hear from other people how they're using drones in the utility space. I think there's a lot to learn from everyone here. So yeah, more than happy to share.
Absolutely. No, I'm keen for more sessions down the track. And yeah, anyone has any great things to share, feel free to reach out. And yeah, we might have to knock on your door again, Ben, with some other ideas of what to share. So thanks so much for contributing. Good. And yeah, we hope to build a community more. So thanks so much again.